In this video, we're taking a look at this, the Live Gamer Ultra S, and to be quite fair, when we talk about capture cards, there's not a lot of innovation just because of how far capture cards have come. However, AVerMedia has been challenging the market with things like this, the Elite Go, that there's a capture card built into like a power brick, as well as like this. This is the GC515, which is a capture dock for in handhelds. But what's the best way to innovate for capture cards and make it better for the consumer? Add more features and make it cheaper. This capture card is currently on sale for $129. It's retail, I think, $149, but what you're getting with this is some really awesome capture specs for that price in comparison to some other cards on the market. Let's get into this video. Now, for full disclaimer, AVerMedia did send this product over for review, and this is a sponsored video, so take that however you want. That doesn't change the fact that I'm going to be as honest with you about this capture card as I normally am, and I'm still going to mention other things in the market. So let's get this unboxed, let's talk about it, and let me show you some of the really cool specs that are included. So here's the Live Gamer Ultra S, and we're gonna go ahead and unbox it and see what comes inside, and we're gonna talk about those specs that I've been mentioning so far. Anyway, here's the really cool AVerMedia box. Nice logo, nice stuff. We'll go ahead and open it up, and it says, AVerMedia, not to be spending too much money, make a smart choice with budgetary and high quality live streaming and video collaboration solutions. And I think that's what they're trying to do, honestly, here, is just to make things easier for you. They're even showing off some of the other things like their other cameras, which we reviewed the 515, we've reviewed the Live Gamer Ultra 2.1, and I have the microphone and boom arm behind me to go ahead and test out for some future stuff. We've done the AX310, we've done a lot of this stuff, and the truth is, yes, they kind of tackle this budget market really well and getting something that's sometimes cheaper with better specs, and I think that's what they've accomplished here. And here it is. This is the GC553 Pro, but I'm not going to call it that. It is the Live Gamer Ultra S, and it looks very similar to what most capture cards you would expect. It's got an HDMI out and in, as well as a USB 3-piece here. Now, it's got plenty of ventilation, and I honestly like the aesthetic with the red right here on top. It looks really good. Looks like inside the box, they've included a USB-A to USB-C connector, as well as an HDMI cable, obviously, so that you can do pass-through. I wish all capture cards included this, but we just recently reviewed one on the channel that did not include an HDMI cable, so I'm glad they're including a cable. That being said, you can see right here on pass-through resolutions, 4K 60 HDR with variable refresh rate, 1440 144 HDR with variable refresh rate, and 1080 240 HDR variable refresh rate. And captures what's really cool. Look, 4K 60 capture, up to 4K 60, 1440p 140, 1080p 240 capture, and then your HDR is 1440p 30 and 1080 60. I think that the coolest thing about this is this is $129, and to be able to have those kind of captures on the market, I don't think it exists, especially at its on sale price right now, $129. So the big thing is, let me get it connected to, I think we're going to do the Xbox Series X today. We're going to get it connected to the Series X. We're going to play some games. We're going to go through all of that. I'm going to show you OBS and all of the capture and see what all we can do with this capture card. So I'm currently on my Xbox right now, and you can see under TV and display, I'm actually at 4K 60 right now. And the best part about that is I'm actually inside OBS. I'll flip over, and you can see here is this actual OBS window, and I have connected the Live Gamer Ultra S GC553 Pro. And you can see under resolution and FPS, it has device default and custom. Custom just went ahead and went straight to 4K. But if I change it to custom, I can basically choose whatever I want here. I can go down to ultra wide support. They have 3440 by 1440, which is really cool. They have 1440p. They have ultra wide 1080p, 16 by 10 or whatever it is, connection 1920 by 12. There's so many connections here. I can change this to 1080p if I wanted. FPS, you can see it goes up to 240 FPS for capture, which is absolutely insane. However, you can always do match output FPS, so it'll match whatever the input is. Now, some of you might be asking the question, but Brandon, my console doesn't stream at 200 frames per second, 240 something frames per second, and that's true, but you're not only capturing that for this specifically. You could be using it for a 2 PC setup, things like that. There is a completely different set of options here, especially for 1440 144, 4K 60 HDR, whatever the case. there's a lot of other use cases than just console capture, and so I think that's why all of this is included. But while we're looking here, just to go ahead and confirm the other ones, let's go to 1440p, which is 2560 by 1440, and it will capture up to 140 or 120 highest FPS. Let's go ahead and confirm 4K. We can go up to 60 FPS, which is absolutely amazing. Now for color space, let's go ahead and say that we're on 4K 60. Let's just make sure for video format, this is going to be in MJPEG. Now that's not like the worst thing in the world, but this is the highest compression when it comes to video rate. So for the best quality, maybe you drop down in resolution. Like for example, if we go 2560 by 1440, we now get NV12, which is a less compressed video format, and it will look a little bit better when it comes to actual picture quality. However, you're just losing a little bit of resolution. If we drop down to 1080p capture, you also get XRGB, you get P010 and YUY2. You're getting into 10-bit capture with P010 and some other things that you get from here. And you can also go up to 240 FPS, but the moment you do, you're back down to MJPEG. So for those really high capture frame rates, you're obviously going to be in MJPEG for the compression. But if you go 120 for 1080p, you can still get NV12. So there are options for less compressed video feed capture. You just have to obviously lower resolution, or you have to lower like the actual capture frame rate. So what you're currently looking at is New World, and this is on 4K 60 with the highest settings that you can possibly do when it comes to capture. And one of the things I want to talk about right now is actual latency on this capture card. Now, I want to go ahead and preface this. There is a way to make the latency lower, but I'm going to talk about it specifically from where if you were 4K 60, you plugged it in, you want to pass through, and you want to capture 4K 60, then let's talk about that. So MJPEG inherently is going to have a bigger latency. I don't think that that's all the time, but specifically for this card, if your capture format is MJPEG, you have increased latency, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm actually playing through the preview window in OBS, and totally you can do HDMI out, send it out to a monitor, and you'll have no latency, and it'll be full, beautiful viewing experience, no issues. But I always talk about this because some people do want to play from the actual preview window. Now, if you're running MJPEG, yes, you're going to have some latency. Now, it is not crazy bad. However, I'm going to show you right now. I'm holding the controller. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the stick, and you can see that latency of when I hit it to where the actual character moves, right? So there is some latency. Now, I have found that if you actually change video formats, it gets better. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to drop this down to 1440p and change the format to NV12 or YUY2. If you're doing HDR, 10-bit, you can do P010, blah, 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 blah. But we're going to do 1440p 60 at NV12 or YUY2. So here's 1440p 60 FPS capture, and this is on the NV12 format. Now, there are other options. There's XRGB, there's YUY2, P010, but all of them have different frame rates that are less than 60. So if you were to get 60 FPS capture and not use MJPEG, you have to use NV12. Now, looking at this, here's my controller again. Here's latency. It is almost zero. Not like perfect, but it is really low. I mean, and you can see I'm clicking the stick, going to that. It is crazy low. Now, I'm not measuring latency or anything, but when it comes to a gaming experience, at least on a game like this, not like a competitive shooter or anything like that, this works great. I could totally play from the preview window and not feel inhibited by my gameplay. I feel like it's great. I don't feel like there's any issues at all, and I could totally do this. So if you're not capturing an MJPEG, you could totally do it from the preview window and play without any issues. So honestly, and it looks really good. Even capturing in 1440p 60 looks wonderful. Now, most of you are probably streaming to Twitch, and if that's the case, you're only gonna be doing 1080p 60. You could do 1080 120, but most of you are gonna do 1080 60, and with that, you also open up XRGB and some other formats to get some better color. Let me change to that. So this is 1080p 60 capture at XRGB for the video format, and apparently this is almost as uncompressed of video signal as you can possibly get. I personally can't tell much of a difference. Maybe you can when you're looking at the screen and you can see a difference, but this is 1080p. It's obviously gonna be a little softer just because of the resolution change, but this should be the least amount of compression that comes from this capture card. So I'm back on 4K 60, and what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna play the game while I talk about some cool stuff. So what happened was AVerMedia reached out and said, hey, we want to re-release the Live Gamer Ultra, which is a card they've had on the market before for a very similar price point, but with much lower capture specs. But they wanted to be able to offer more features at a lower price, and to make sure that if you wanted to be able to have higher refresh gaming, higher refresh capture, and all of that, that you didn't have to spend like a complete crazy amount of money to be able to get one of those things. And even they offer better capture cards on the market, like the Live Gamer Ultra 2.1 HDMI 2.1, which does 4K 144 capture and pass through and all that cool stuff. It's really nice if you need those things. Yes, they do have better capture cards on the market, but this one specifically I think is more tiered for probably 95% of creators, and this is very serious. 4K 60 capture is really all you need. If you're playing 4K 120 and you need that pass through for 4K 120, then yes, you're looking for the HDMI 2.1, because you have to be using HDMI 2.1 anyway. So you're gonna have to get one of the more expensive cards, but there's only 2 or 3 of those on the market, and AVerMedia is one of those. So if you're looking at getting a capture card and you're just looking about streaming on Twitch, you're playing at 1440p 120, you're playing at 4K 60 with HDR, and you want to be able to do that, I think this capture card's pretty awesome. I think that MJPEG is not the best thing in the world, at least for the latency. And if you're playing from the preview window, 4K is just not it, just because of MJPEG and the latency that's added. That being said, I'm playing with it literally right now. That's what I'm doing. But if you're going to be doing capturing of like 1440p high refresh, that's MJPEG, or even 1080p 240, all that's MJPEG. As long as you're passing through to the monitor that supports that, I don't think there's that big of a deal. I think that most people are going to do pass through that are doing this anyway. So take the time, do the pass through, connect it to your monitor, go to the capture, have fun with it. If you are playing from the preview window, I would expect that you're going to be doing 1440p 60 for the capture, for you to have a really nice playable experience as well as a capture experience. With all that said, do I recommend the Live Gamer Ultra S? And as a sponsored video, normally it's really difficult for me to be able to say like, hey, go buy this, because, you know, AVerMedia is paying me to make content like this. But the truth is, for the price, when it comes to a capture card, this is one of the best specs for the price on the market right now. And I would encourage you to go take a look at it yourself. Maybe check out a few other reviews and see what your thoughts are specifically on this. But at the end of the day, what I recommend doesn't mean that it's what's best for your setup. So always take a look at what things work in your setup. If you're a person who needs a 4K 60 capture and you're okay with playing through pass-through, I think the quality looks really nice for what's there. If you're needing high refresh capture, 1080p 120, 1440p 120, this can totally support it. And what's really cool is it's not USB-C 10 gig 3.2 Gen 2 capture and all that stuff. It's just a USB-A that goes to Gen 1 3.2. So I think there's a lot of possibility when it comes to capture. The last thing I'll say is it is really easy to use. Plug it in. It literally just went straight to the default settings that I had on the Xbox. And I thought that was really simple, and I didn't have to do too much finagling. I obviously want to tinker, because some of you want to tinker, but I literally could just plug it and hit go, and it was great. That'll bring us to the end of this review. Thank you AVerMedia for sending this over and for sponsoring this video. If you want to see some more content, maybe the actual capture card go from them, the one that's the charging brick, or the one that's specifically for handhelds that captures to an SD card, by the way. That's what's really cool. No computer required. I'll leave those videos on the screen now. And if you want to get these cheaper, you can actually use the link and the coupon code in the description, and I'm pretty sure you can get them cheaper than what you can on Amazon or any of the other places with my coupon code, and it does support the channel. Thanks guys, really appreciate you. We'll see you in the next video.